All right, so you're young and you're confused and you don't know how to figure out your financial life. Relax.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Great thing about youth is you never admit that you're confused. You just kind of walk around thinking like, yeah, I know what's going on. And the millennial crowd, I have one, on the younger side of it, I think. I think it's more the I generation now, right? There's an I generation. But you know, I love to talk about the challenges of our youths as much as we possibly can around here. And as we actually, I think, Lex, this is our last original program for 2017. Next week we will have some previously broadcast shows that were significant interest, we certainly hope, and then we roll into the new year after the holidays, like most people do. Anyway, I'm a little punchy. I got to pick up my Z-Pack, I tell you. I got to pick up my Z-Pack. Everyone's got something going on here. I don't have my tea today, but I think we'll be okay. That's my state of mind. What can I tell you? Pleasure to have you aboard. Thank you very much for tuning in. So here was a headline CNN ran the other day. What does it mean for millennials? Well, when I figure out what it means for me, we'll figure out what it means for the millennials. But here's an overall discussion of young people and the financial application. Though we've got a really sharp guest.
It was hard.
Aside from the credit card debt, my husband and I also have a significant amount in student loan debt. I believe our starting balances together were about $225,000. And now we're at about $160,000. There's a lot that you could do with $2,000 every month of the year if it wasn't being spent on debt.
I saw friends and family coming out of college with some pretty significant student loans and thought to myself, gosh, that's something that I don't necessarily want to get involved in. You know, I did basically 2 years of college. Like, what do I really want to do with my life? And do I need a degree to do that? And, you know, the answer was no.
I think that we live in a generation in which we're always going to have side hustles. A side hustle is having another source of income to be able to sustain the lifestyle that you want to live. You'll use your main hustle in order to finance your side hustle, so your side hustle can become your main hustle.
A big priority of mine has been saving, but with the money that I don't save, I would definitely say I travel a lot. I like buying vintage clothes. I like going out to eat with my friends. We
spend a lot of money on experiences. You know, my parents, I think, laugh at when they see and hear what we're doing, but I just chalk it up to my experience bucket is being filled.
We like to be able to enjoy life, but we also are quite intelligent as far as like how we spend our money.
We are all trying to find a balance between spending responsibly on necessities and things that we need and spending on things that enrich our lives and make us happier.
Okay, so for the rest of the show, we'll kind of talk like this just to make sure that. Do you talk like this?
I don't know, or at least I try not to.
Because you're going to drive us all crazy over the next couple of. Anyway, Cathryn, welcome.
Thank you
nice
for having
to have
me.
You. Do you have any idea what the side hustle versus the main hustle versus the paying for the side? I think I get it.
Yeah. So a side hustle.
You do what you do to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And do it to have fun, and if maybe what you do to have fun actually becomes your life's work.
Right.
Is that what that guy was saying?
I think that's what he was saying. Most of the time, the side hustle is to supplement the income to help really pay your student loans and pay down the exorbitant debt that millennials generally have. So normally the side hustle is kind of a necessity, but a lot of times millennials will use their side hustle as like their creative outlet. That's their passion project that they hope one day can become their main source of income. But unfortunately, got to pay the bills.
All right. No rules to this conversation, but here's the copy of the book. I love this. The Millennials Guide to Getting Her Together. So this is about everything.
Yes.
And what's interesting is I got the book right here, and it's obviously designed for millennials, all of whom mostly have their eyesight. You threw a lot in there.
Yes.
I can't. There's no way I could read it from here. And even with these, I mean, there's So you cannot be a pauper in your old age. First and foremost, you need an investment. Duh. Yeah. No, this is track your drunken fun. I can't count the number of times I've woken up after a night out, looked at my bank account, and said, "You're an idiot." Well, yeah, we all did that. You know, this notion that your generation is so unique, I think, is ridiculous. I mean, there's some nuanced differences, but we've all been there, done that type of thing, right? So you've got quite a little story. You're a friend of my former producer,
I am,
Jessica, who's hanging out here and who might take over the controls at any time. But you went to Emerson.
I did, yes.
And you were a journalism?
I was a journalism major. I wanted to be a sports writer.
You were? You did? You what? So what happened?
I didn't make a lot of money, and I had a lot of student loans, and so I had to figure out a way to kind of crawl out of the hole I had dug myself into. So I decided to start reading personal finance books and self-development books, and kind of became obsessed with it, and it led to a career in finance, which is shocking coming from someone who went to Emerson.
So what are you doing in finance?
I own Hogan Financial Planning, which I launched in at the end of 2015, and so we're kind of just finished our second year. And I also go around doing financial literacy seminars and speaking gigs. I speak to high schools, colleges, at a lot of women's events and group events, and just trying to be a financial literacy advocate and use humor to get the point across. Because
why, you're funny?
Are you
funny?
I mean, my mom thinks I am.
You gotta be funny during the show. Well, let me say this about that. You are desperately needed. I can't tell you how many times I have been a guest speaker at a high school or collegiate class and, you know, rolled into the real life stuff.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know what happened to me when I started the uphill both ways and 4 feet of snow and men are men and sheep are sheep, and what it was like in the old days, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I try to do as little of that as I can, even though my current producer thinks I'm a curmudgeon and always trying to take that kind of road. But I inevitably will get into a conversation with younger people about what their career paths versus their expectations versus the realities are. And I am perplexed and amazed at how many brilliant kids come through both the public or private school system and high school, spend their own or their parents' $250,000 for college, come out with a really, really impressive degree and a specialty, and have no idea, A, about how much money they're going to make, B, need to make, and now when they get thrust into the real world, have no idea how to get there.
Right.
Am I overstating it?
No, it's a huge problem, and financial literacy in general in America is financial illiteracy is an epidemic, and so my message is not just for millennials, it's for everyone, really. I think everybody has something to learn. They say that like 75% of Americans can't pass a basic financial literacy test, so they don't know what interest is, they don't know how credit cards work, things like that. But I do think that the younger generations, they're not taught this stuff at home because their parents don't know what they're talking about, maybe, and then they also don't learn it at school. So they, get out of college and they have this wonderful education, but then when it comes to money, for whatever reason, they just have no idea, how much things cost or how they're going to manage their debt. And as we know, our country as a whole is just drowning in debt, whether that's student loans or consumer debt. And so I just want to provide a source of hope for people. I also, want to let them know that, yeah, it's scary and overwhelming, but, we're all on this Sally Mae Titanic, I call it, together. So, you got to be able to laugh about it. You got to be able to, have, not always be so serious and scared to deal with it. But it is imperative that we learn what we need to know.
So what happened to you, before we get into the nuts and bolts of what you should do to get your together, give me the 60-second version on what happened to you.
Yeah, so I went to college and I was completely financially illiterate. I was going to be a writer.
You went to Emerson? That wasn't cheap.
I did. No, it was not cheap. And I realized that, you know, I was having like this quarter-life crisis and crying into my
Quarter-life crisis?
Yeah, quarter-life crisis.
How about that?
You know, they're happening earlier and earlier now.
Yeah.
So I was, you know, I saw the student loan balance that I had and I knew how much money I was making. And I was just crying hysterically into my Emerson sweatshirt, and then I realized that this Emerson sweatshirt had cost $250,000. So that was a very real moment for me, and I said, you know, but I was determined, I was ambitious, and I knew that I wanted to get my own bleep together, so I started reading as much as I could, and I found that while I loved learning about financial literacy, I just thought it was all very boring and presented in a way that's
Did you ever do any sports journalism?
I did, yeah. I worked at the Olympics in Beijing.
For who?
I went over with the Olympic News Service as part of Emerson students were chosen.
Okay.
So I did that.
Internship type of thing?
It was an internship, and then I actually I wrote for a couple of baseball websites, and I wrote for my hometown newspaper.
And that wasn't paying the bills?
No.
It was making you cry into your sweatshirt?
I was crying into my sweatshirt every night.
Well, are you crying in your sweatshirt now?
No,
Oh.
I'm not.
Well,
yeah.
We'll find out why not and what you're going to do to get your... to wake up the kids if they're like hanging out or watching YouTube in the bedroom. They may want to watch this. We'll be right back.
It took 25 years of work and sacrifice to claw my way to the top of this company. But finally, I'm here.
What? I know you're talking to yourself by the window, but I need a promotion.
I'm sorry, what do you want?
A promotion. And I don't want it. I deserve it.
Why? How long have you even worked here?
3 full days.
Yeah, I'm sorry, who are you again?
The Millennials.
So, I'm sorry, let me get this straight. You've worked here for 3 days and you expect a promotion?
Yeah, well, nothing crazy. Like maybe director of communications, or digital creative, or pictures.
Pictures?
Yeah, I know Photoshop. Now, I'm gonna take a nap. Where's the nap room?
The Millennials, a show that explores what no other dares to. Beautiful 20-somethings trying to find the success and love they're entitled to.
All right, so while SNL is having its fun with the Millennials, my guest is trying to address the issue and advise on how to get their straight. Hyperbole, but not that much.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's kind of accurate, but you know.
Okay, so you've already told us you went to school, incurred a lot of debt, thought you had a career in sports journalism. You doing any of that still? A little on the side? Still a sports
occasionally
junkie?
a little bit on the side. I am a sports junkie, yeah. So
Did you play softball?
I did, yes.
Okay, now play softball. I get it.
Yeah.
All right, so it's all coming together for me. But now you live in Atlanta, you tour the country, you're selling your book, you're doing seminars, and I'm guessing you're getting a lot of attention because you're a fresh look in this conversation about financial stability, right?
Yeah, I had somebody tell me recently that they think that I am a cross. If Susie Orman and Amy Schumer had a baby, that would be me, and that's kind of exactly what I'm going for. I'm just trying to, put a new, fresh look on financial literacy and personal finance, and I know it's often looked at as a boring, overwhelming for rich white people, and I'm trying to, make it for everybody.
What do millennials not get most?
That's a tough question. I think right now it's how to manage their student loans, and that if you can't, bankruptcy doesn't wipe away student loans, and they're not going to go away, and you have to manage them, and you have to have a plan in place to handle them in your everyday life. But also at the same time, you don't have to live your life and never go anywhere and never do anything because you have these student loans. I'm trying to say, we have to manage them and get a plan in place, but at the same time, I still want you to live your life and enjoy your life.
When it comes crashing down, like the reality of the debt, does it feel like a refrigerator on your chest type of thing?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's why the quarter life crisis thing is becoming more and more popular, and I think it has a lot to do with student loans and people not being able to afford houses and cars, and they're delaying marriage and having families, and that has a lot to do with not only financial illiteracy, but the unfortunate pressures that we have to go to college and incur this debt in the first place.
Going back to living at home,
yeah,
which is a real problem for everybody. You know, it depends, right, on the day.
Yes.
But no, I mean, you know, I went back home after college and spent 2 years at home, and they never saw me.
Yeah.
So I was working. But that's it. And then you just got to go. You got to go. I think probably back in my day, it might have been a little easier to go.
Right.
Why is it tougher? The debt itself? I mean, the actual debt starts to be needed to be paid in what period of time after graduation?
Generally, they give you like a 6-month grace period is the norm, but
and then you're rolling into $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 a month, depending, right?
Yeah. It gets crazy, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, you know, people have to move home, and that they don't always want to do that, but it is usually the smart thing to do, and you just kind of, you know, swallow your pride and do what you got to do. But you know, there is a path forward, and that's what I'm trying to.
Well, what is the path? What is the path? All right, you know, I'm sitting here and I got $150,000 worth of debt. I'm going to make you know, $400 a week in my new job. You know, my cars, you know, my dad let me borrow the 2004 Civic. You know, it needs work. I got a boyfriend, I got a girlfriend. What?
Well, it's all about not only cutting expenses, but prioritizing your expenses and having your priorities in a place.
I thought millennials didn't pay for anything anyway. Right?
That's unfortunately not true. They do pay for a lot.
Okay.
So.
Like what?
Well, I mean, you got your
coffees, big iced coffees.
See, that's what I'm trying to say. Make your coffee at home, all that. So
yeah, I mean, that's all part of it, right?
It's all part of it. It's all part of it. And it's not just the small expenses like that. It's knowing whether it's going to be more efficient to rent or buy, or rent or buy or lease a car. Just knowing your best options with every purchase that you make, how to effectively make the most out of your money, the money that is coming in. How can we not only save it, but pay down the debt, and how to do that responsibly, how to consolidate your debt, or you know, just know what you're doing with your student loans. Most people don't even know who their lenders are, so it's just being more aware. And
well, is there a number one piece of advice that you're giving young people that is like a light bulb turned on for them when you do? I don't know. I'm looking for some. We're talking a lot in generalities now, but what's the I could have had a V8 type moment for young people that you're able to bring to them?
I think they don't realize that investing is not rocket science, and that they can start investing right away, and whether that's opening an IRA and putting some into index funds, that it's not something that just rich people do, that it's something that you need to start now, because even if you can only put $5, $10, $20 in there, over the next 20 years, that's going to it's going to add up. It's going to grow. It's going to compound, and that it's extremely important if you want to live a comfortable life in the future. And so, kind of telling them that, you know, investing is something you can learn. You don't need this fancy MBA to know how to do it, and you can be better than 90% of the investors out there if you just learn how to just the fundamentals, the basics.
You know, what might be interesting to talk about when we come back is why the advice might be more credible from the same generation. Because there's something about older people suggesting how to live your life that just doesn't seem to rub the right way. We'll be right back. You know, I learned as a parent that when someone else tells your kid something smart, it generally, for some reason, it's just the nature of the game, seems to resonate more.
Right.
So when a young person starts to knock people down a little bit and say, all right, listen, let's get our act together, or our together, it probably resonates. What is the biggest mistake that millennials are making right now? Not saving?
Not saving, not investing for their future, and accruing more debt. So not understanding how credit cards work.
Well, I'm trying to. You're telling me that I could live my life, be happy, have a sense of humor, and you want me to put $20 a week away? Well, it's the only $20 I have to go to the bar on a Friday night. So, you know, who the hell are you, right?
So maybe invite your friends over instead.
right?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to, tell people that you can live your life, but you can also do it in a way that's economically efficient. It's not always easy. You are going to have to make sacrifices, and it's better to make sacrifices now than it will be to make sacrifices when you're in your 50s and 60s.
Is there any data as to the acumen on the part of this generation of young people understanding has it deteriorated? In other words, they use their credit cards on a wanton basis, not really, I mean, that's been something that America has had a problem with. I'm going to blame the young generation on that. But is there less understanding?
Yeah, and there's predatory lenders as far as loans go, and then with credit cards, people don't understand the difference between variable interest rates and fixed interest rates, and also they just don't understand that you shouldn't be putting more on your credit card than you can pay off each month with it, which is hard to do if you're living paycheck to paycheck. But at the same time, I'm trying to teach people to be more responsible.
But then again, it's smart. I mean, not to speak out of turn here, but one of the things my post-collegiate graduate was instructed by her father to do is to get a credit card, use it, and pay it off every month.
Right.
Which builds credit history.
Yeah.
So use it as your checking account, then do not carry it into the interest period and pay it off. And
it is the devil and the angel on your shoulder. Credit cards can be great. It can help you to make those large purchases like homes and cars, or it can literally ruin you. So you have to be disciplined to responsibly use a credit card.
One of the things I talk about with millennials all the time is that I think that your attention span is wide, it's horizontal, but not very vertical.
Right.
You agree?
Yeah, in my book I talk about my own attention span. It's that of a distracted goldfish. So, yeah, it's not very good. I feel like I had a better attention span when I was like 5. Which it's gone
even
way
still
downhill.
today while you're telling everybody how to get their together?
Yeah, I'm just honest about it. I am human and I don't have a very long attention span. It's not good. I'm working on it though. Staying off of my phone.
Well, that's the other thing. It all so all right. What's the moral of the story?
Moral of the story is that there is hope. You can have a successful financial future, but you do have to be accountable for it. And I'm going to be giving people advice, and from the viewpoint of a friend, and not someone condescending. Like I think a lot of mostly the
me.
Not you. Not you. No. It's like
there's a little
the people on TV, not you, but like other people on TV who are giving financial advice tend to be a little condescending.
Because they have made the money.
Yes.
They've already done it.
Yeah, they're like, well, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? And I'm going to kind of reframe the conversation.
Because you're in the midst of it as you speak.
Right.
Building an enterprise,
I'm
trying
just
to get
trying
other
to pass
millennials
on the lessons
together.
Yes.
All right. You paying off those bills?
Oh, yeah.
College loan done?
Almost done. Almost done.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Come on the radio in January.
I will,
and
absolutely.
We'll put some young people in the audience and see if we can get some answers.
Perfect.
To find the book, it's in major bookstores?
It's on Amazon.
It's on it. Ever heard that?
Yes.
Amazon.
Small store.
More information on our pretty smart guest at foxprovidence.com. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Final word when we come back. Stay with us. All right, last show of the year. Thanks for 2017. That was really terrific. In September, we crossed the 4-year mark on this program. And over the next week or so, we'll kind of chill and replay some conversations that we've had that are pretty good here in 2017. We'll start brand spanking new on Tuesday after the new year. And wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Be safe, be smart. And you millennials, start saving now. Good night.